Well, hello and welcome everybody to a hump day edition of the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network and our Steelers YouTube channel. My name is Chris Halicke, flying solo today. Um, Greg is over on the South Side, ironically enough, covering the opening day of or the first media availability of Pitt's training camp. So flying, like I said, flying solo today from over here and. It was an exciting day today too, which is really funny. So, um, yeah, appreciate you guys jumping on. Like I said, whether you're watching live or if you're watching after or listening after, we just appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, it was an exciting day today. The sparks kind of flew near the end. The highlight of the day, as much as maybe Mike Tomlin doesn't want it to be a highlight of the day, the highlight of the day was a fight that broke out. Uh, Justin Fields ran a read option. I just wanted to make sure I obviously put it in our feed, but Justin Fields they ran a read option and he kept it, ran, and kind of near the end when they were starting to whistle it down or whatever, because especially when it comes to these plays, especially whenever they get further downfield, they don't necessarily fully tackle. That typically happens like during rushing drills when um, stuff is like happening between the tackles. But once guys get downfield, it's not full blown like a guy has to be tackled in order for the play to end, especially when it's a quarterback running it, which is what was happening. And uh, Justin got hit to the ground by Landon Roberts, and so that was the thing that sparked it. Mason McCormick came up and was like, "Yeah, I'm not having that," and he knocked over Landon Roberts, and then just all hell broke loose. And saw Patrick Queen in the middle of it, Joey Porter Jr. in the middle of it, two guys that not surprising that they're in the middle of it. Troy Fautanu kind of in the middle of it too. So yeah, and I mean it was I have a couple fans got the video of it on social media. I put it in our feed so you can see it. Not the full blown thing. Usually, typically when something like that happens, you're getting it as it's already as it's already happened. So, um, yeah, it was. Matthew asks who broke up the fight. Coaches, players, a number of people. And again, these things happen. I saw like one comment in our Steelers feed saying something like, "Oh, this is just another symptom of a Mike Tomlin team lacking discipline." Like, no, this kind of stuff. If this stuff wasn't happening during training camp, there's something very, very wrong. This is competition. This is, as Mike Tomlin puts it, this is Steelers versus Steelers. This is, these guys are competitive. They're paid to be competitive, and this is what's going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. And it's probably going to happen again before camp breaks. So, especially whenever, this is the second day they put pads on. They probably won't wear pads tomorrow because they'll save wearing pads again on Friday for the Friday Night Lights practice. So, I would assume tomorrow will be another day without pads. It'll be the first day without pads since putting pads on. But either way, it was sparks flew today. I'll put it that way. But it was good to see. It was good to we got to talk to Landon Roberts afterwards. He called it a love tap for Justin Fields. But I also think Landon Roberts knew exactly what he was doing. Right? He he was talking about it, and he goes, "This is exactly what he said." He goes, "The offense did what they were supposed to do." And this is after he was like smiling ear to ear. And he goes, you're always supposed to protect your quarterback. I think it's a really good thing. You can see the mentality of your offense protecting the quarterback and stuff like that. They should always protect the quarterback. So, yeah, this is again, this kind of stuff happens. And Roberts makes a good point. Yeah, this is what you kind of get a test, and Mason McCormick, I think I even kind of said it to myself, or, out loud, it was like a couple minutes after it all, like it dissipated and everything. I was like, it's kind of not surprising to me that Mason McCormick was the guy, and so, and also you're kind of wondering, okay, Justin Fields on the field. We know Russell Wilson is still not fully participating. I'll put it that way. He's still limited. So like Mason McCormick on the field at the same time as Justin Fields. Well, it was a vets day for a few different guys: Isaac Seumalo, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, and I think even James Daniels, like he was practicing, but he was, I wouldn't say limited, but he was definitely taking more reps off. So you got more of Spencer Anderson at left guard, or Spencer Anderson moving over to right guard, and then Mason McCormick lining up at left guard. You have a few different, scenarios, a few different ways that they're kind of mixing and matching guys, but some of those depth guards got some extra time. Still not seeing Zach Frazier up on the first team yet. Yeah. Stephen A. says, any fights break out between the media, that would be a thing to see. Yeah, no, I think that media members are going to be doing everything possible to avoid fights, because the last thing we want is to have our credentials revoked, and that's a good way to get your credential revoked, is to get into a fight on the field. But yeah, I agree, that would be pretty funny. Some other highlights from today. We got our first look at receivers versus defensive backs. Yesterday was backs on backers. Today was receivers. We'll go on one-on-one with defensive backs. Pretty close to the end zone, and it's a drill that's it seems a little bit unfair, because, sometimes when these guys go on breaking routes, in an actual football situation, you're going to have safeties and linebackers and other defensive players in the middle of the field to kind of support you. But at the same time, if you just say, okay, it can only be out breaking routes in a drill like that, then defensive backs know, okay, well, he's not breaking in, so I can maintain all outside leverage and just play that. So I kind of understand it, but some highlights from that: George Pickens, he's just a freak. His body control, his ability to make contested catches is off the charts. However, I will say Beanie Bishop held his own in one rep. Pickens went up and got one, and then like on the way down in the back corner of the end zone, Beanie didn't give up, and right as they were about to hit the ground, he was able to rip the ball out, and it was incomplete. The referees called it incomplete. Oh yeah, referees today. We'll get into that here in a second. But officials were present today, and officials were saying, yeah, it was incomplete. Obviously, there's no challenges or anything like that. So, but seeing that, Van Jefferson had a really, really slick route. It was kind of an in breaker that just broke out at the last second. So some sort of like dig and then out or whatever it was, but either way, he put Averett on skates. I mean, as soon as he broke he went in and then broke back outside. It was just insane separation. I haven't seen enough from Van to make like an assessment of being like, okay, this dude is. You don't have to trade for a wide receiver 2 now, something like that. I'm definitely not saying that, but here and there, you're seeing that he can be a guy, that can be productive to a certain extent. I see a guy that can put up similar numbers to what he did a few years ago when he was with the Rams and they won the Super Bowl, and he he had like over 800 yards receiving. I can see that. You can see that that's been there before. He's got the size, he's got the hands, he's got the work ethic. He runs good routes here and there. I think he could be a really solid number 3. I'll put it that way. I do think that. I still think that they need to go out and get another guy. I don't necessarily want to get into that conversation today because that seems to come up every single day. But just in terms of Van Jefferson, it's looking pretty solid. Calvin Austin had a good day today. He made some nice catches, including a couple kind of sliding catches or like diving catches where the quarterback has to like place it low to the ground in order to avoid the coverage. And he went down and got him and secured him, and it was good stuff. So a pretty good day for both of them. Barber asks, special teams, when talking about the kickoff. So 2 days in a row now, Danny Smith has had them line up the way that teams will line up on these kickoffs. So, the kicker's, way back, about to kick from the 35-yard line. And then on the other side, on the receiving end of the field, the two teams will be lined up, 5 yards or so away from each other. And they're going over where they're going to be standing, how they break once the ball's caught. They're going over all the little details. And so there's a lot of just coaching going on without actually running the drill yet. I kind of expected officials being present today to actually get to see it in action. Maybe, just maybe, they're calling an audible. Maybe they were planning on doing that. Maybe they're just calling an audible to wait to watch the Hall of Fame game tomorrow night and see how it's ran then. And then we're like, okay, now with how we're coaching it, now we actually got to see it in action. Now we can actually go. Maybe Friday night would be a good time for that at the Friday Night Lights practice, and actually go through it for the first time. We'll see. I don't know. Obviously, if they don't wear pads tomorrow, I have a hard time thinking that they're actually gonna run that drill without pads on. No word yet of whether they're going to wear pads or not. I would assume they're not going to, since they'll probably want to wear pads Friday night. And I'm not exactly sure of the rule, but I think there's only so many padded practices you can do in a week, or so many days in a row that you can do padded practices. In terms of the CBA, if I'm not mistaken, I could be, but either way. There's a couple of other questions here that I wanted to get to. I definitely wanted to get on the kickoff stuff because, again, it's been mainly the coaching aspect of it and making sure guys know where they're supposed to be, at least according to what Danny Smith is doing. Stephen A. asks, any update on Roman? The latest update, and Mike Tomlin did not provide one, said he hadn't talked to the doctors yet, but there were multiple reports out last night that he is week to week, that he could be available for the start of the season. But I think a lot of the work that he's going to be doing, I would say he's out for at least a couple weeks, from things that I heard today. Nothing definitive, but I would say at least a couple weeks. Week to week is the best way to kind of put it. And it is an ankle sprain, so he did avoid a significant injury. There were two new injuries today. David Perales and Kyron Johnson, two outside linebackers. Perales hurt his knee during one of the reps in 7 shots, and then Kyron Johnson was later on with a hamstring. And so the outside linebacker room, I would be kind of surprised if they didn't, especially if Perales has a significant knee injury or a knee injury that's going to keep him out for a while. I would be shocked if they didn't go outside and get one. They already went outside. They got another Michigan alum, Tariq Black, a receiver, and released Jonathan Marshall to adding a receiver with Roman out for a while. But that's the latest on Roman Wilson. The good news is that it's not a serious knee injury. The bad news is that his participation in training camp might be done. Maybe he gets back in at the tail end of it, but I would be kind of surprised if that happened. But could say it's a possibility. Matthew asks, how is Peyton Wilson looking? I have yet to see him have a bad day. He's got such a high motor. I think he's the first one on the field every day. I don't necessarily want to. I'm not taking anything away from the guy. Don't get me wrong here, but the way he was explaining it was it's part of his routine to get his body ready, and everybody's body is different. And for Peyton Wilson, the type of body that he has, the obvious health concerns. He's got a certain, based off of what trainers have told him, he's got a certain routine that he needs to go through in order to get his body warmed up and ready to go. and that's a lengthy process. And so he says, I just get on the field. He's like, it's not because I'm trying to be the first guy on the field. It's just I have a process that I have to go through in order to get my body ready. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly why he's out there. And so, but in terms of what he's doing on the field, yeah, it's pretty impressive what he's doing so far. Today and yesterday, kind of solidifying the linebacker pecking order, the off-ball linebacker pecking order. It is going to be right now, at least starting off, the starting two are Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts. Peyton Wilson was getting in there during the first few practices that they were still kind of in shorts, but right now the first teamers, especially when they're 11 on 11 in pads, it's Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts at first, and then on the second team it's Peyton Wilson and Mark Robinson. Obviously, Cole Holcomb was on the PUP list, and so he's not participating. But still, the high motor. Had a really nice rep against Jalen Warren in backs on backers yesterday, where he did a nice little spin move, and then the very next Jalen Warren stood him up. It just completely stopped him in his tracks, and so. But he's having a really good camp so far. I do think that at some point, either before or by midseason, that he's going to have a more increased role in this defense, and I'm going to be writing on the defense later today. On the heels of that fight, Terrell Austin spoke today. That wasn't a coincidence. It was pre-planned for Terrell Austin to speak today. Arthur Smith is going to speak tomorrow, and so they were planning on coordinators speaking. And so it just so happens that like maybe not even 30 minutes after there was a fight, Terrell Austin's talking. But he was going to be talking regardless. But he, talked about how guys such as Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts, he's like they're tough, they're edgy, and they set a tone, they set a temperament for the defense, a style that they want to play. I'm going to be writing about that. I think Peyton Wilson fits into that with the type of camp that he's having, because he's, like I said, he has a very high motor. He makes certain things, especially when it comes to getting to the ball, or getting just to the play, to the ball, whatever it is. He makes his closing speeds ridiculous. And somehow, Patrick Queen might be faster in terms of closing speed. I don't think Patrick Queen is faster in a foot race, but I think it just goes to show Patrick Queen's instincts and just ability to react and everything like that. So, Mark asking, is he running with the ones? I would assume that was about Peyton Wilson, and it's like, no, right now he is in the second duo of inside linebackers that are going out there. Let's get to a couple more questions here. Oh, good question about the fullback position here, because Cool Rays asks, are you seeing Conor Hayward at fullback? The answer is no, because we're seeing Jack Coletto, an actual fullback, at fullback, and they are running with an I formation at times, especially when they've been doing 7 shots. They have been running out of the I formation, and as soon as it happens once, but it's happened enough times over camp where I'm like, yeah, I formation, man. It's the I formation. It seems so old school, but it's an Arthur Smith offense. It's an offense that is going to run out of 12 personnel, out of 21 personnel, 13 personnel at times. There are going to be larger sets where they're either going to have multiple tight ends or multiple backs. But Jack Coletto, and honestly, he's looked pretty good in terms of a fullback. Not asked to do a lot, pretty much just help pave a path for Najee Harris or Jalen Warren. He did that today in 7 shots. At one point, he completely pancaked Mark Robinson. I even put it in our Steelers feed today. I was like, I'm beginning to become more and more convinced that he's going to earn a roster spot somehow. Because if Arthur Smith is going to want to run an I formation at all, they're going to need an actual fullback. I would not rely on Conor Hayward to do that. Conor Hayward is not a traditional fullback. you really need a guy who knows how to play that position and understands all the little nuances of playing actual fullback. And Jack Coletto is doing that right now. And so hopefully we'll get to talk to him soon. It's been kind of hard to track him down, but we're getting to the point of camp now where we've kind of talked with all the stars. We've talked with the quarterbacks multiple times, both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. We talked with TJ today. We've talked with George Pickens, with Patrick Queen, with a lot of the stars on the team. Now we kind of need to, talk to some of the other guys, maybe some roster bubble guys. Jack Coletto to me is one of those intriguing guys, not because like fullback is a sexy position or anything like that, but just because if this is going to be a part of the Arthur Smith offense, they're going to need a fullback. And so far, I think that he's looked pretty good, in my opinion. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to not seeing a fullback, but shoot, man, like Kyle Shanahan's offense, they run with a fullback. There are certain offenses in which it just works, and I think I'm just, like I said in the Steelers feed earlier, I'm becoming more and more convinced that he is eventually going to earn a roster spot. It's early. I'm not trying to overreact. There's still 2 more weeks of training camp to go. There's still at least there's at least one preseason game before the camp closes and they wrap things up here in Latrobe. But first impressions, first week, I really do like Jack Coletto. I think he's done a pretty good job, especially playing that fullback position. Let's see. David asked a really good question kind of on the heels of that, just to kind of stick with the same topic. Is the design of the new offensive scheme coming clearly into view? Does it look promising? It's hard to see at this stage because there's still a while to go for the offense to be fully installed. Yes, it's training camp, and yes, they're a week in, but man, they haven't even played a preseason game yet. The one thing that, there are certain things that you're seeing that are just, okay, they're new. Running out of the I formation is one of them. I'm seeing way more running back screens, and not only seeing more running back screens, but offensive linemen already out in front of the running back by the time he catches the ball. Not like it's been over the past few years in which the running back catches it and the offensive linemen are still trying to get out there. It's a complete different situation when you're talking about, knowing how to coach up all these little details so that these plays can be properly executed. People might hear running back screens and be like, oh my God, we're doomed or something like that. I don't think it has to be like that because screens can be very, very good plays to run and can be very, they can get chunks, but they have to be ran properly. They have to be ran correctly. You have to have the right personnel. And I think the Steelers have athletic enough offensive linemen to do it. And I think another big part of it is making sure that, everything is executed properly. All the timing is down for something like that. Let's get to a couple more. Really quick, I don't want to touch on the outside external help for a receiver too much because I do feel like we talk about it every day. And, I understand what I reported last week and everything like that, so I can't necessarily shy away from it, but at the same time, I understand it's beating a dead horse after a while. Barbara asks, is it imperative to get a big name wide receiver to solidify the room? I'm just going to stick with what I've reported. I do think that the Steelers are, as I was told, convinced that they're going to get one. The 3 names I was given was, Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, and Tyreek Hill. I don't know if it's going to be one of those 3 guys. Again, this is just what I was told by somebody on the inside that I very much trust, and I think that eventually it'll happen. And I do think based off of what I was told on that yes, like they do believe it's imperative. Otherwise, they wouldn't be engaging or sitting back and being patient, knowing that, okay, there's a situation that might eventually resolve itself. And then all of a sudden, teams are calling us instead of us having to call them. And, it just depends. But I do think if you go, like we talked about yesterday, with Roman Wilson going down with an injury, Roman Wilson going down already significantly impacts the receiver depth chart, because right now it would be, with Roman Wilson there, your top 4 in whatever order you want to put them. I would put them in, George Pickens, probably, you could go 2A, 2B here with Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. And then the 4th as Roman Wilson, kind of starting off. But then you take Roman Wilson out of that, and then the 4th becomes, Scotty Miller or Quez Watkins. All of a sudden it becomes a very, very thin position. It was already a thin position to begin with. So I do think that they need to get one of these external guys before the season begins. I don't know if it actually happens. Again, I've just been told how they feel on the inside, that they feel convinced that they're going to get one at some point. We'll see if it actually happens. Just because they feel that way doesn't mean it'll actually happen. But, they also know more stuff than I do. Let's see here. We want to get to a couple more questions before we wrap things up. Crispy71 asks, how's the offensive line looking against the ones? I do think it's kind of a bit of – I think today was a little bit better for the offensive line. Excuse me. I do think today was a little bit better for the offensive line. Yesterday, the defensive line really, really did a lot better. The time in which I really watch that isn't necessarily whenever they're doing a lot of passing plays. It's because they, when they put pads on, they have a set time of the practice that they will run primarily running plays. They'll do play action every now and then to try to keep the linebackers and everything honest, but it's predominantly run plays. And so yesterday was more defensive line winning. There were a couple of nice runs, 5-6 yard gains by Najee, but overall it was a good day for the defensive line yesterday. Today was a little bit more give and take. There were some really good reps from the defensive line. There were some really good reps from the offensive line. Saw Najee get loose a couple of times, saw Jalen get loose a couple of times, and then there were times where there was nothing. Didn't matter if it was Najee or Jalen or Jonathan Ward or Shamklin or any of these other running backs that are out there at some point. So I think today was a little bit more. I think today was a little bit more of a I would call it a wash a little bit. Randy asked an interesting question. Any positive surprises with John Reese Plumley since he received more reps when Russell was out? Yeah, so at one point today, I even kind of asked, I was like, is Plumley shorter than Russell Wilson? Because it looks like it. Even if they're the same height or anything, he just looks shorter. It was just his stature, the way he carries himself, I don't know, but he just looks really short out there. Plumlee's a distant 4th at this point, especially when it comes to quarterback position. He does field punts with the punt when like early in practice when guys are when they get the jugs machines to pop the balls in the air to simulate punt return and stuff like that. And new wrinkle to that, by the way, since these practices during the week are in the morning, they start at 10:30 in the morning with where the sun is. The sun is literally right. So if you see guys, if you go to practice, like one of these practices during the week, and you're seeing guys drop these, and you're like, oh my God, these guys, it's because they're literally looking right into the sun to try to catch these balls as they're coming down. And so, but Plumlee's one of the guys that's back there. You got Calvin Austin back there, you got Scotty Miller back there, and Cam Sutton back there, and it's you get your typical guys, and then Plumlee's back there too, also fielding them. So, but in terms of like throwing the football and running the concepts and everything like that, like he's a distant 4th. He threw a pick today. It was he's a distant 4th. But he's really athletic. There's a couple times where he's like tucked it and ran. He's a good athlete. He's a really good athlete. But I think his future is most likely in the UFL or whatever that second league is called now. Mr. CJ Jr., bro, Chris is working solo already. Dude, you got like understand that Greg is also responsible for covering Pitt, and today was the first media availability for Pitt training camp. So it's going to happen every now and then, and it's fine. It just comes with the territory. So let's not be too hard on let's not be too hard on Greg here. And actually, Greg even literally not to do too much of a pun here, but Greg also did a pinch hit on baseball today because 2 hours notice for a press conference for the Pirates first rounder signing and everything like that. And Greg literally was on the south side this morning, drove over to PNC Park, got that, and then went back over for like Narduzzi talking and stuff like that. So hats off to Greg for pretty much being all over the place this morning. Stephen A says, Chris, I hope you've made your way over to Sharkies. I hear reporters talking that place up. Yeah, it's a good spot to go to here in Latrobe. Obviously, like Sharkies is one, Dino's is another one. There are a few different spots, but Sharkies tends to be the place that most of the reporters go to. But it's not just reporters. Like you have like some members of the team, go there. You'll see them go through every now and then, and so it's a good. They got a lot to offer when it comes to beverages, and they got some pretty good. I don't like calling them boneless wings. I just like calling them chicken nuggets with wing sauce on them. Yeah, no, it's a cool place. I like going there. I'm not going as often as I did like last training camp that I covered because obviously I'm still moving into my house and trying to get unpacked, but at the same time it's kind of part of the training camp process. So William, you guys, man, says I'm gonna Chris, you run another one off. No, man, Greg is all over creation today for Pitt and Pirates and everything like that. It comes with the territory, man. Greg has got multiple responsibilities, and so there are going to be days in which he's not here. So yeah, and Chris P7 was glad to hear Greg wasn't sacked. No, Greg is doing a fantastic job so far. Love everything that Greg is doing. By the way, if you guys didn't see on Instagram or with either of the pictures for the stories that Greg and I both wrote yesterday, those were Greg taking those pictures. He's got a good camera, and he took some really awesome pictures. He got a really sick shot of George Pickett's one-handed catch over Joey Porter Jr. He got a really good shot of Justin Fields running into the end zone for the deciding rep of 7 shots yesterday. He almost got it. The focus wasn't right, but he almost got a perfect picture, and he showed me a perfect picture of Justin Fields flashing the peace sign at Joey Porter Jr. as he was running into the end zone. That would have been a really, really sick picture. That would have been awesome. Just the focus wasn't quite there. But either way, he took a bunch of good pictures yesterday. I cannot. Yeah, and Stephen, I thought the same thing as soon as it happened. Stephen says, we needed this camera today for that brawl. Yeah, I think Greg will be here tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly, but Jerry says, can we see them? Yeah, go to our Instagram, those pictures, or you can go to our go to DK Pittsburgh Sports and go to the latest articles in our Steelers feed. The one that I wrote on Justin Fields yesterday, that picture was his. And then there was at one point we had the picture in there of George Pickens' one-handed catch. But either way, it's on our Instagram for sure. Several shots. And Michael asked, what's his Insta? Just go to our DK Pittsburgh Sports Instagram. Those pictures are on there. So they were really sick. Greg's a talented dude. He's done a really great job so far. So don't give him a hard time for not being here today. I'm probably gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I got some writing to do. I'm gonna throw a couple more things into the Steelers feed, including Tara Lawson talking today. I'm gonna get that up here on our YouTube channel. I already have a video of Landon Roberts talking about the about the fight and about it was a love tap for Justin Fields. But yeah, going to get all that done. Get the story out to you guys on the defense. I thought it was we've been focusing a lot on the offense, and for good reason. I understand that, but if this team is going to succeed, it's going to be through defense. And so I do think it's important that we focus on that side of the ball too, because there's a lot riding on it. Just really quick, Vess asked what was the fight. There was a fight at training camp today. We started off with that. We're going to wrap things up now, but you can go back to the start of the show and listen. But it's also in our Steelers feed where I kind of laid it all out. And there's even, like I said, a video from a fan where you kind of saw the second half of it. So, yeah, it got a little bit intense today, which, it typically happens at training camp. And like I said, earlier, this should be happening. Mike Tomlin says, we don't want it to happen, but it does happen. So, all right, well, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for joining live and for listening. But even if you're not listening or watching live, I really appreciate you tuning in. And we're going to, we'll be back tomorrow with another show. Practice is once again at 10:30 in the morning. And then Friday was the Friday Night Lights practice. So the Friday show will obviously be before we do before practice. So we won't really have anything on the Friday Night Lights thing until Monday, whenever the show comes back. So Friday show is going to be kind of a tweener a little bit. So we'll see about that. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate all you guys tuning in and for watching. We're definitely seeing, obviously it comes with the territory, traffic going up, video views going up and stuff like that, because, training camp obviously underway. Really appreciate that. Stephen A, really quick, just to kind of, he asks, do you need tickets to attend the Friday Night Lights practice? I do believe so, but I don't think they cost money. I would direct you to the Steelers website for that. I don't have the information right offhand, but I believe any training camp practice you have to have tickets. So I would assume for that you would also need tickets. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody. Appreciate it. Catch you guys on the flippity flip. We'll see you tomorrow.